We're going to turn it up a little bit. It's that time of day, and I'm going to invite to the stage Endeavor Miami's Claudia Duran and Opción's Abi Mandelbaum as they discuss the critical balance between, personal well-being and business success. So you're going to learn some strategies to maintain your health and creativity as an entrepreneur in today's demanding business landscape. So let's give it up for Claudia and Abi.
I'm blind to see and find how far to go. Everybody got their reason, everybody got their way. We're just catching and releasing what builds up throughout the day. It gets into your body and it flows right through your blood. We can tell each other secrets and remember how to love. Da-da-dum, da-dum-dum. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Are you ready for a great conversation here?
I want more music.
Oh, me too. Should we dance more?
At the end, we'll all dance together.
Okay. So we're going to get real and very vulnerable right now because we have great stories to share with all of you, and hopefully we will inspire and plant some seeds. So shall we get started?
Let's do this.
So about 3 years ago, I was having lunch with Abi, and we were having a very deep conversation about the challenge that he was facing at that moment when he had just exited his company very successfully. And you know, a lot of founders dream with that exit and making a lot of money and being successful, and sometimes that's not the outcome for some of the entrepreneurs. It actually takes a toll. And so Abi was telling me the story. And now, you know, you're inspiring people through your blog, but I want you to tell what happened back then.
Thank you, Claudia, for such an easy question. All right, so I was 38, and I had achieved my lifelong dream of retiring by 40. I had built up a tech company that was acquired by Vista Equity Partners. And I was on top of the world. It wasn't even joy, it was like euphoria, and it lasted for a few months. But 6 months, almost exactly after the sale, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was completely depressed, and it's hard to put it into words right now. All I can say is that it was a very deep, dark place that I never thought I'd be in. I mean, I always felt like I could just plow through anything, and I think that's something that a lot of us entrepreneurs believe. We can just plow through it, but the toll comes. The toll comes at some point, and for me, it came then. And I remembered back then. An executive coach that I had in the past had told me that she considered anybody that had turned 35 and not gone to therapy to be absolutely crazy. And at the time I had laughed. I found it like a funny joke, but then I was 38, remembering that, and I went to therapy. I went to therapy. It was incredibly helpful. We could stay here for an hour and tell you all the ups and downs, twists and turns. As you mentioned, I've been very open and vulnerable about it because I want other entrepreneurs and the community to read it. My blog is my name, abimandelbaum.com. And what I can tell you is that now I look back at that period of my life with a lot of gratitude. At the time, it really felt miserable. But thanks to those moments, thanks to those lows, that's what got me to really look inside and figure out what is it that I'm here for? What is it that I really want to do with my life?
That's incredible. And I also agree, when you have these challenges in your life, I truly believe that you learn so much from them. That's what makes you stronger, and then you avoid the same mistakes in the future. But that's the only way to learn, really. You know, you have hurdles. Life is not linear. You have ups and downs. So those challenges actually make us stronger. And now you built an incredible company, Opción, which came from that inspiration, right, and from that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much connected. Don't think I came up with this statement overnight. This took years. But today I would describe my mission as creating organizations where together we can heal and become the best version of ourselves as individuals, as a society, as humankind. And everything I do is aligned with that. So I'm a very different type of leader now than I was with my first company. All the endeavors that I get involved with are first for purpose, second for profit. And I have it clear that if that ever swaps, it's not going to go well. So Opción Yo, the reason I got involved with Opción Yo, and thankfully, we become a leader for the Spanish-speaking community worldwide. We've created a safe place for those people that want to live their best life. But they're not looking for anything external in order to do that. They're willing to go deep inside and create that amazing life from within. Because we're all searching, right? So many entrepreneurs here that I meet, they're like, yeah, my company is going to be valued at this. I'm like, you're not thinking about it right. If you're doing it for the money, you are going to burn out. And guess what? Even if you do succeed, you're going to end up in a similar place to where I was. So to me, it's clear that we keep chasing, as long as we keep chasing this thing externally to change how we feel inside, we're not going to get there. We have to do our own work from within.
I just had this conversation with Mobolaji Adele, and going inside and just tapping into your inner wisdom, I think we all have that inner wisdom. It's just making the time to be in silence with ourselves to really hear what is inside of us. It can be riding a bicycle. It can be, just contemplating nature, sitting under a tree at a park. It's just, that time that you have for yourself. It's so truly important. And sometimes founders or people in general don't make time for themselves to really recharge batteries, because that's where help you keep going and avoid burnout. And talking about burnout, I had a really, really bad burnout in 2022. And it took a toll on my health. I was already working at Endeavor, and I was just trying to, support as many entrepreneurs as I could, innovating, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to pivot and then go virtual, and just trying to figure that out. I remember some of our managers transitioned out of the company, and we had to go and hire talent, and it was hard. And so what happened is that I completely, my brain just started not functioning, and I had a migraine that lasted for 2 complete weeks. And so what happens when burnout, you can't really focus. I couldn't read the emails well. I wasn't really functioning. My body was just telling me, screaming that I needed to stop and just focus on myself, and not only mental health, but also on my physical health. And so at that moment, it was so important to trust the team to step it up. And I was, I told them I need some time off. I need to really focus on myself, because if I can't prioritize myself, then I won't be able to thrive with my job and help all the founders that I want to help, right? And in that moment, I started really using different tools that I started experimenting with, but breath work is something, just breathing. I mean, if you think about it, we breathe, but we don't know how to breathe. Breathing is so important, really from the abdomen, and really concentrating your breath. It's it's a meditation. It can help you really lower your cortisol levels really fast. When your stress is, and you're in a stress mode for a long, long time, for months, and some people even years, it starts taking a toll on your body, and your body gets inflamed, and starts giving you, problems in your immunity and your nervous system. So that's when all the diseases come into effect. So it's also listening to your body, and when you start feeling, that stress, how you're going to lower it. So you can do sound healing, you can do meditation, you can do breath work, you can, anyway.
But one thing that I really want to highlight from your story is that you were vulnerable with your team. And I think a lot of leaders, and it happened to me in the past, we don't feel like we can be vulnerable with our teams, that we feel we're the leader and we have to be the tough ones. And I really admire that you were able to get in front of your team and admit that and say, I need help. Because I think, we all need help. We all need support. A lot of people talk about, your support network. I call it just, what are you doing for your mental wellness? Right? A lot of people are so focused on their physical wellness. Actually, let me do a quick poll. I like doing polls where I'm in front of audiences, because when I do them at home, nobody answers. So, how many people here work out at least once a week? Raise your hand. How many of you work out every day? All right, that's great. How many of you meditate at least once a week? Every day? Yeah, the number is a lot less. But I have to say, a lot more hands went up this year than last year, which is a good sign. But we live in a world that has given a lot of importance to physical wellness, which I agree with. Right? I also pay a lot of attention to my physical wellness, but I've gotten personally a lot better overall results by paying attention to my mental wellness. And I really want to encourage that. All the companies that I'm involved with today, it's through that concept. The concept that, look, if we get our mental house in order, everything else will follow. Everything else. That's been my experience.
Well, this is a muscle, right? And we have to also take care of it. And sometimes we forget about it. Or there's stigma around, just focusing on your mental health and asking for help. And that's what we do, especially at Endeavor. We're here to help entrepreneurs. That's our core, right? And for me, when founders ask for help and they say, I'm stuck, I have all these problems, it's challenging, and it's taking a toll on my physical health, I'm stressed, that's when we actually show up. Because that's what we have to do. We're here to support each other. And if we're all doing well, then our community can thrive. And so it's just understanding that there's nothing wrong with being stressed and asking for help or being vulnerable. It's actually a sign of power and of really, vulnerability and tapping into your inner wisdom that you don't have all the answers, and nobody expects you to know everything, all the answers. A lot of the programming that we have comes from when we're children. And so it's not our fault that we repeat the patterns from our parents, or sometimes, that we learn when we're little. And so as adults now, we have to sometimes realize, why am I doing this? Does it serve me? Like, who am I? And what is my true identity, and and my purpose? What do I want to do? Because I feel like our only purpose in life is to really live with happiness and peace. And if we all share that happiness and peace together, this world is going to be a better place. And so it's all up to us to really, create that support system. And raise your hand where you're not doing well, because that's okay. It's totally fine. We all go through ups and downs.
You just reminded me of something I once heard that really stuck with me. Somebody told me, it's like, look, there's a lot of emotions. And I actually think more than 100-something emotions have been identified that we can feel, even though we can probably all name just a dozen or so. But he said, but there are two cornerstone emotions. And when you learn how to master them, your life will be a very different experience. And those two emotions are courage and compassion. And at first I didn't understand. Obviously, we had a very long conversation about this, but eventually I understood, right? Because we're really not taught from an early age to have self-compassion or compassion for others. And even if we are taught, it's usually compassion towards others. We tend to be way more compassionate with others than we are with ourselves. I was certainly one of those. I mean, with others, I forgive you, everything is okay, don't be so harsh on yourself. But with myself, it's like, take out the whip. It's like, I can't believe I did that. So I realized after working on my self-compassion, I became a lot more courageous. And I saw the connection very clearly, because if you know you're gonna go really hard on yourself if you fail, how much are you gonna be willing to take risks? Not very much, because you know what's coming if it doesn't work out. But once you develop that self-compassion, all of a sudden you feel like, sure, I'll give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? So that's played a big difference in my life. So that's something that I wanted to share with everyone.
And boy, that's a relief, right? When you know that it's okay to fail and be self-compassionate. And we're not perfect. And I truly believe, I've had so many challenges, like all of us, I'm sure, have challenges in our lives, and that's part of our own personal stories. But it's how you pull through those challenges and how you make them, a teaching, an opportunity to improve and learn from them. And I feel that, for me at least personally, I've grown so much from them, and I actually appreciate and thank even people that have made my life really hard. Now I thank them, because of them, I am who I am now. And I truly admire, anyone that has been part of my life in the good and the bad, but now I feel that I am in charge. And doesn't it feel good? Right? Because life starts becoming it's much, much simpler than we all think. We complicate it. Human beings complicate life. But it's not that hard if we really are empowered and we can make the decisions, right, from within.
Well said. Very well said. Continue, please. One thing that I wanted to talk about is how many of you are in some way involved with AI? Because I feel like wherever I turn around today, it's like AI, right? It's like, what is going on here? And I really do agree that we are in the era of AI, in which I call artificial intimacy. I actually think we've been living in that era for about a decade. So I truly believe, and the reason why I really honor the opportunity to be up here is because we need connection more than ever right now. Somebody said to me the other day, I have 1,000 friends, but nobody to walk my dog. And it's a simple comment, but it really hits you, and it's true. So, it takes me back to that moment you mentioned 3 years ago, where Claudia and I had been working together as part of the Endeavor Miami board. We had gotten to know each other well, but that vulnerable conversation that we had took our relationship to another level, right? Since then, our conversations are a lot deeper, and we connect, we ask each other for help, and I really do believe that's what this community needs, right? It's the stop pretending, right? Stop pretending that you have it all put together. Stop pretending that, everything's going well. No, because eventually you kind of convince yourself. You convince yourself. It says, no, be real with people and they'll be real with you. And you're going to get so much more out of those relationships. You will get so much more out of life. And you know what? You'll enjoy the entrepreneurial journey, which I feel these days a lot of entrepreneurs don't enjoy. They're just after the outcome.
Or they're an automatic pilot trying to survive, right? It's challenging to be an entrepreneur already. It's a lonely journey. And now the landscape is complicated. There's not that much access to capital. And so I think that is where, together we can really support each other. And I tell the entrepreneurs all the time, most entrepreneurs already had the same challenges. The amount of time you can save when you share your challenges and you are vulnerable and open, you learn from each other. And that's the power of an entrepreneurial community. I think that's what it's all about, what we're building here. When you really connect. And talking about connectivity, yes, technology is incredible. We're living the technology era. But technology, if you're too into it, it can actually disconnect us as humans, right? Because we're so much on our phones. It's like almost an extension of our arm. right? It's so hard to put it down. And if it vibrates and the WhatsApp is constantly, with messages, you feel like you have to answer immediately, and people sometimes get mad at you if you don't answer it immediately. But it's actually giving you the opportunity to disconnect a bit and connect here in this reality. What is hard. And more, I think that reminding ourselves of this type of connection and having real conversations and going deep, the magic happens when you actually are open and vulnerable, and you just show yourself as a human being that you are, because we tend to put a lot of masks to protect ourselves. That's what we learned, right? And it's not our fault. It's now time to really understand what are those masks, what are those barriers that we're putting, or the shields, and start getting, they're heavy. So start letting loose, taking all these masks, and then just showing up as who you truly are.
It's interesting you bring up the word masks, because obviously COVID was a very, very difficult time for a lot of people. But a good friend that I really admire used to say, at least now it's obvious that people have masks on. And
literally.
Yeah, and in a sense, COVID opened up the conversation, right, about mental health, about mental wellness. And even though it was a difficult time, I think that was a good thing that came out of COVID. But we still have a long way to go. When you think about, let's say, yoga or meditation,
Or cold plunging.
10, 20 years ago, like, people looked at people with yoga mats like, wow, they're hippies, right? But now it's like, what? You've never done yoga? Like, what world do you live in? You've never meditated? So I believe that this is going to continue. So we are moving in the right direction. At the same time, I do believe that we're moving too slowly. But thankfully, there's a lot of companies, including Opción, that I think our purpose is to accelerate that, and so that we as a society, as humankind, start giving as much of a priority to our mental wellness as much as we give to our physical wellness. And we're actually seeing it, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to go through the labyrinth of emotions, it's an experiential booth, so you get a chance to really go inside. And most people come out with a smile on their face, so I highly encourage it. But it's very interesting to look at what people answer when you ask them, do you spend as much time on your mental wellness as you do on your physical wellness? The responses are very disproportionate. But that's going to change.
That is changing. It's actually a growing industry. There's more and more startups entering the wellness space. There's a lot of platforms now, tools that you can access. It's just about tapping into them. And there's a lot of knowledge, right, around it. And science. There's a lot of science. This is not just someone thinking, oh, we woke up and wellness is important in mental health. There's the science behind it. I mean, really, if you're stressed and your cortisol is high, it will take a toll on your body. And also, if you avoid working on your traumas or working on some of these blocks that you have, and you don't go to therapy because, ooh, I don't want to do therapy. I mean, it's investing in your well-being. It's not even mental health or physical health. It's well-being, right? We are beings, so we want to be well, right? We all want to be well, no? And feel well? Isn't it great to feel well? And so when we feel well, guess what happens? We're the most productive, and our companies can thrive and grow. Because when you're not, how are you going to be able to be a good leader and show up to your team with positive energy if you don't feel well?
And I see we're starting to run out of time, and I just wanted to share with the audience one more story. Because, we tend to create these hero type of stories. One version of it is like the overnight success that was really like 20 years in the making, so everybody looks at the media. But I do want to share sort of another personal story. And that's, yes, I had the big success when I sold my first company. And you may be sitting there and thinking, wow, he went through depression and he got out and now he's involved with multiple companies and the companies are doing well. But I want to be very open about the fact that for me, it's been a journey that has had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And just as the peaks have been very high, the valleys have been very low and very dark. So I also don't want people to leave this talk with the perspective that it's sort of like, oh, you go through this period and then you come out and you take over the world. No, it's constant work. For me, at least my experience is that it's constant work. It's something that I'm committed to every day now, working on my mental wellness, my mental well-being, just as my physical wellness, if not even more so. And for those of you that are going through a difficult time, just know that there is a community here. I mean, this community 10 years ago did not exist. This did not exist. This looked nothing. South Florida looked nothing like this. Now you have a huge community to tap into, but you gotta open up. You have to be vulnerable because that's what will draw people to you. And vulnerability is contagious, right? As soon as you open up to somebody, it's amazing what you hear back in return, and then it just keeps on flowing, and it's just something beautiful. So before I give you the final word, Claudia, I just really want to thank everybody for taking the time out of visiting some AI booths and come to talk about mental health and mental well-being.
Thank you, everyone, for also being here. I think this is such an important topic that is not discussed too often, and we should be discussing it more often, right? Because it's at the center, at the core of our success and our well-being. And this is what we do at Endeavor, right? And what you talk about community, and we have an incredible team at Endeavor, so they're all here. Go talk to them. We want you to be part of Endeavor and also part of this community, just like Abby is. And remember, be open, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid of connecting, deeply connecting, because there's someone there that is also going through a journey similar, and you'll be very pleasantly surprised what comes out and the magic in those real connections and the support that people give you, the love that they give you, because we all want to be well, as I said. So well-being at the center of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.